this new tradition last year where they celebrate their wins the correct way.
Bottle and Sylvie, ESPN 1000. Don't miss it.
I know what you mean.
It's like their own Philly.
Okay. Okay, I think what it is.
We shouldn't be showing this. Am I crazy?
What have I told you? 17 minutes of rain would wash away 108 years of travel.
Do you see this team growing into the team that you were in 2005?
So, great props, everybody.
You are ridiculous.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Greg Braggs Jr., and alongside me, as always, is my guy, Junior from Bad Guy Radio. We're going to be talking some Chicago Bears football, like always, going to be doing these weekly shows. And now we've got some game on tape. We actually had a game on TV. Got to watch it again this morning. It was a lot of fun to watch the Chicago Bears back in action, winning their first preseason game. A lot of positive signs we took from that. And so today we have a very special guest joining us, former Chicago Bears fullback and current analyst on ESPN 1000, doing post-game show, the Chicago Bears podcast, doing great work over there. And we appreciate you carving out some time this morning. How you doing, Jason?
Good. How you guys doing?
Doing great, man. Honestly, it's I know we've kind of crossed paths a few times, but I'm not blowing smoke. It's an honor to have you on. I mean, for me, my fandom, like where I've really started to sink my teeth in this team, came from those early Lovey Smith Bears. You know, before that, you know, I was always a Bears fan, but when you guys really took the city by storm, and Devin Hester and Peanut Tillman, Lance Briggs and Urlacher and yourself and that offensive line came in here with a totally different attitude, kind of changed expectations for Bears fans. And we're all death starved to get to the top, you know, as Reuben Brown used to call it, Space Mountain, you know, and I'm hoping this team can get to Space Mountain at some point. But watching you lead the charge back in the day, you know, setting it up for Thomas Jones was a thing of beauty. And I do want to start there before we get into this year's team. Like, with the evolution of the fullback position, you know, it seems like it's underappreciated at times. And then there's certain teams that do value it, that find a way. If you look at a team like the San Francisco 49ers or other teams that are very successful with it, like, where do you see the fullback position going? Or is it, I know it's kind of a secular kind of thing where what goes around comes around. Is it going to come back in the way it was when you were playing?
Yeah, I agree with you. I've been saying that a lot. The NFL, like, it goes in trends, right? We had the Wildcat trend,
Right.
now the league's all about passing just because of the rules are really tailored to the receivers. I mean, look at defensive backs. You can barely touch a receiver. You get a pass interference call, it's a spot foul. So a lot of coaches want to throw that ball. But when you add the dynamic of having a fullback, right, it does a couple things for you. One, it sets up an identity for you that, hey, we're going to be a tough nose. We're going to pound the ball down your throat. But it also adds another element in terms of personnel groupings where if you have a fullback that can catch the ball out of the backfield, but also can block, it just gives the defense something else to worry about. And as an offensive coordinator and as an offense, you want the defense to defend every blade of grass that you can. You don't want them to take things for granted and say, you know what, they're not going to throw it to the fullback out in the flat. You know what I mean? You want them to defend everything. So it just brings an added element. And I'm just happy that, offensive coordinator Luke Getsy does implement the use of the fullback. We saw yesterday Kyrie Blasingame had an 11-yard reception, and he has the ability to do that. He's shown that before.
They didn't throw to him enough last year, right?
Yeah. And Braggs, you've seen that at camp. He's caught some balls, and he's a physical guy. He's good in the run game as well. So I hope that Getsy continues to give him the ball when he can. It just adds another element to that offense as a whole.
Yeah, and sticking with that for a minute, when you talk about Blasingame and not getting to it, the other aspect of being a fullback is obviously pass protection. And, that now we got this running back room that's getting pretty interesting with Roschon Johnson entering the fold and Deontay Foreman and obviously Khalil Herbert, who, had like the most yards per carry, but somebody that has been criticized for his pass blocking ability. And then I saw this clip where Tom Thayer is saying Roschon Johnson's one of the greatest pass blocking running backs he's ever seen coming out of college. And I don't think Tom Thayer's in the hyperbole lane like I am every day on the shows I do. So it's like, I trust what Tom Thayer says. He don't blow smoke. So what does Khalil Herbert need to get better at? Or is this a situation where eventually Roschon Johnson, who showed a lot of his talent yesterday, could eventually take that job because he is so capable of, as a pass blocker, tough runner, and brings different traits to the running back position?
Yeah, it's just the fact that, pass protection in terms of a back, it's just fundamentals. It's just techniques. It's just, repping it over and over again. Running back coaches, they do what we call EDD, everyday drills. So it's usually ball security and pass protection. And it's just about, a lot of it's about want to, but it's also making sure that you're in the right position, making sure that you've got a good punch, and making sure that you can recover and move your feet. It's a little different in terms of blocking on the inside if you're taking on an inside linebacker, because that's more of a front box out, but you still got to be aggressive in protection and close down the distance. Just as you would if you were blocking off the edge, you still got to close down the distance. You got to have good hand placement. You got to be able to move your feet. So it's tough because pass protection is like, yeah, you have to be aggressive and close down the distance and give yourself an opportunity to fight that defender, to give you space between you and the quarterback. But at the same time, if you're overly aggressive at the point of attack, that linebacker will swim you and to get around you anyway. So it's definitely one of the hardest things to do in football. And if you have a knack for it, if you have good technique and fundamentals like what we've seen from Roschon, you can excel at it. And Roschon knows, there's still things he needs to work on. We've only seen him in a pass rush situation in training camp. We saw him a little bit yesterday. So it's going to be good to see him as the preseason goes along, as the season goes along. Can he pass protecting against some of the elite linebackers in this league? Khalil Herbert as well. He didn't excel in times in pass pro last year because he was always out of position, or he just didn't know who he had in protection. And, I'll go back to say everything that I just said. You've got to know who you got in protection first. And that's the biggest thing for a young running back, especially in a new system.
And how much of is that a responsibility on him pre-snap? And how much of a responsibility is that for like the center or the quarterback to help him out there?
Yeah, without a doubt. Whoever's identifying the mic in protection, right? Or that sets the protection for everybody. So depending on what the protection is, if the O-line if they have the 4 down and the mic, well then depending on what the protection is for the back, he can have the will if there's a backside protection. He can have the will, you get at the free safety or any edge pressure, or any outside pressure, meaning the corner. Or if he's on the front side, obviously we'd have the Sam, the strong safety, and any outside pressure. So that sets the protection. But you as a back, you have to know once that mic point is made, you already know who you have based upon whatever the protection is called. So that's the main thing, is understanding where you're at in the grand scheme of protection. And then to say all that, then the fundamentals comes in, in terms of executing that block. Another person who we didn't mention, Travis Homer. If you look at the play, the pass that Peterman threw to Isaiah Ford, he was solid in pass protection. He took on that middle linebacker, that blitz that really, enabled Peterman to get that ball off. And he did some good things too. So I don't want to not give him credit where credit is due.
Yeah, well, and me being the resident homer at CHGO Bears, I think I got to root for Homer to make this team. I want to throw it to my guy Junior here. He's from Bad Guy Radio and one of the more passionate Bears fans I know, and I didn't give a proper introduction. So fire away, Junior.
I just have one thing to say, and I mean no disrespect by this at all, Jason. Would you say the fullback position in the NFL is going away because it's not as needed as it was, 10, 15 years ago? I heard you say having that fullback position on the field, extra pass block, can get out there, run around, catch the ball. You need that extra yard or two. That's the guy you go to. But I think you can also look at it on the other side and be like, well, if we take this fullback off the field, we can put another receiver on the field. We can put another tight end. We could put a Mercedes Lewis on the field. How do you feel about with that position going away and putting another, I guess you could say, gadget players somewhat on the field?
Yeah, 100%. You're right. It just depends on what type of identity and style you want to play in terms of your offense. If you want to go 12 personnel and you can move that H or that move tight end in the backfield, you can say he's a fullback, but he's got to be an elite blocker. You know what I'm saying? So, or if you want to be a 10 personnel team, you want more receivers on the field. It just depends upon what that offensive coordinator's identity is, what he wants his scheme to be. But I think it also depends on what type of personnel that you have. A lot of times you look at offensive coordinators, right? They'll try to force a scheme upon an offense, but they don't have the personnel. So a lot of times, I think personnel is going to dictate the type of scheme that you want. But like I said, it's a passing game now. I mean, you see teams now, they're on the 10-yard line, on the goal line, coming out and 4 wides. You know what I'm saying? It's a passing game. So I get it. Obviously, when we played, the game was a little bit different. I think it was a little bit more hard-nosed and stuff like that. But I think it'll come back around when you see majority of all the teams in the NFL having a fullback before it's all said and done.
Yeah, because it's interesting. Like last year when Luke Getsy was trying to play a certain way of football to start the year, and then he adjusted, I think, at the New England game, started bringing in QB design runs, spreading it out a little more. Those first 6 games, I was going crazy because I formation, run, pass. We've seen this for, 3 decades, all due respect. And it's, when you got a good O-line like you guys did in 2006, and people forget that not only did they have the number 1 defense, the Chicago Bears in 2006, they had the number 1 offense, and that was because they ran the football, even though the other team knew you guys were going to run the football, and you did it anyway, hat on a head, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Me and Olin Cruz, we talk about it all the time. And, we coach together in high school now. So we'll go back and look at our old film. We're like, man, we're running against everybody. I mean, look, the defensive coordinator is even in the box. You know what I'm saying? It was tough. It was hard-nosed football, a different style of football. I like the way that Luke Getsy's, and I like his offense. I really do. I like the fact that he does use a lot of different personnel groupings, a lot of shifts, a lot of motions and stuff like that, to try to keep the defense on his toes. But at the same time, he sticks to his principles. So if it's outside zone, he's going to run outside zone, but he's going to window dress. He's going to have a shift. He's going to have a motion, right, to make it look different. It'll be outside zone, but it'll still be a toss. He'll add in a little power like he did yesterday. They ran some toss crack, a lot of bootlegs and pull-up play actions off of it. We saw the screen game yesterday. I mean, it's huge. So when you have that type of versatility, that scheme diversity within your offensive system, it can create problems for defense. And let alone you have a quarterback, right? A quarterback now who is just a playmaker. In the past, you'd have this guy's a game manager. This guy's a pocket passer. But now everybody in the league's trying to find that guy that can do everything. That can sit in the pocket, dissect the defense. A guy that can, if they want to run the ball, the quarterback don't want to run the ball. A guy that puts so much stress on the defense. And I think we have one of those guys. So the sky's the limit in terms of the creativity that Coach Getsy can inject in this offense now.
Yeah, and you're right about masking plays and showing looks and playing off those. Matt Nagy fell short in that category. I felt in a lot of ways, he kind of only knew one way to square peg and round hole things that didn't fit. And now, you're seeing Luke Getsy and the Chicago Bears trying to fit the mold of what Justin does well. I think it took Luke 6 or 7 weeks last year into the season. And that's why I think they're going to be off to a faster start this year, obviously, with the weapons they have as well. So when you look at that now, that we kind of went through the backfield, because that's definitely where I wanted to start, because I know that's what you know best. But at the same time, when you watch what you saw yesterday, you starting with the ones and obviously the fireworks with DJ Moore. You mentioned the screen game with Khalil Herbert and DJ. What stood out to you in the early goings, before we get into maybe some of the second half surprise guys, but what stood out to you about some of these guys that we're going to see week to week as far as the ones were concerned?
Yeah, it was just, execution. And that's what, Coach Matt Eberflus said last week. He just offensively wanted to see the operation. He wanted to see Justin, get in and out of the huddle. Could he make checks at the line if needed? Could he operate the offense with the limited amount of reps that we knew he was going to get? And that's what we saw. And, in the screen game, and Braggs, you've been at practice, so you see they've had screen periods to where that play is just a now screen, which means they're throwing it right now to the receiver.
And the defense keeps blowing it all up. That's because I feel like they've seen it a few times this offseason.
Yeah, and the defense, they know a screen period, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like, they've repped that play over and over and over again a lot throughout camp. And it's just encouraging to see a play that you've worked on a lot in practice, right? The first time you run it, it just goes for an explosive play. Something that we didn't see a lot of last year. And I had the opportunity to interview Justin after the game, and he was the guy that was counted on last year to generate all those explosive plays. And now you have dynamic weapons, right? You had DJ Moore. We already knew Khalil Herbert was a guy that could generate explosive plays. Darnell Mooney's back, a guy that can generate explosive plays. Cole Kmet, if he gets downfield, can generate explosive plays. Robert Tonyan can generate explosive plays. Mercedes Lewis can help you generate explosive plays because he's such a good blocker. You need that type of tight end when you're running an outside zone scheme to be that lead man on the outside. So it's just encouraging to see that, you can call a screen, or you can, throw a check down, and that can turn into a big play. And it just takes so much pressure off Justin from having to just create, everything. He can just, play within the system. He can, run when he needs to. He can, he can do more, and there's less pressure on him. And that's the growth that, we want to see. And we look at all the quarterbacks who have taken the next step in this league. They've gotten better when these teams have added a true number one. When Buffalo added Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen took off. Last year, Jalen Hurts, they added A.J. Brown. He took off. You know what I'm saying? Bears add DJ Moore. We're hoping Justin Fields takes off. So I'm just excited, man. It was encouraging to see that we had a productive first outing. Obviously, it's a small sample size. A lot more work needs to be done. But even on that screen, to your point, Brad, just getting away from talking about DJ Moore and Justin, look at that offensive line. I mean, look at Jones got out, made a good block. Tevin Jenkins got out, made a good block.
Yep, there was Braxton on the DJ Moore one and Darnell Mooney setting the seal. And then on the second one, Tevin Jenkins gets to the second level and quickly too.
Yeah, and the way that Khalil Herbert set that up, man, he was perfect. Like, the timing's perfect because in a screen game, it's selling something, right? So Khalil, he's selling like protection. Then he's getting out. It's all about timing, him getting out with the offensive line, but also showing the patience to let those guys get out front so that way they can go to work and then get in behind them. And that's something we saw DJ Moore. What he did was he's got such a feel for the game, even in his route running. But you saw on the DJ Moore screen, he caught that ball. He took that cut back inside, right? Hesitated a half a second to give those guys an opportunity to get downfield, So,
do you have any clarity on whether or not this was a legal man downfield? Because I asked the question on Twitter, and then I had people yelling at me that I'm supposed to know because I get paid to know this, apparently, as the resident meatball of CHGO. But it looked like a legal man downfield, and then there was this discrepancy of if it's thrown before the line of scrimmage, it's okay how far they're downfield. And then others are saying he can't be past 1 yard of the line of scrimmage once the ball comes out of his hands. Do you have any clarity on this? Because I felt confident both ways yesterday with so many people yelling and feeling so confident that they knew the rule. And I'm just going to be honest and say, and Justin Fields even said it in the postgame presser that he thought that the flag was going to get thrown.
Yeah.
So do you have any clarity on whether or not that should have been or it was clean?
Which one? The Herbert
one, because Justin had to slip out of because they sent the blitz and so it threw the timing off of the screen pass, and he does a great job and he shows what makes him so great. Most quarterbacks, that's a sack. Instead, he gets out of the pocket, throws it, dumps it down to Khalil Herbert, and away they go. But because the timing took a little longer, you got two offensive linemen a little further down the field than I think they anticipated.
Yeah, I agree. I rewatched it this morning, and I was like, "Oh man, that was close," you know. And I think it just depends on the crew that you have too. But it did look like those guys were downfield on the Herbert screen. DJ Moore's was perfect, but in terms of Herbert's, it did look like it was close because when he was selling that screen, those guys were already out. You know, they were already out, and then he got that screen and turned upfield. So it was close. I thought it was going to be a flag or a challenge or something like that, but
it made me respect the refs because people in my feed were arguing about it. They're still arguing about it today, and I still can't figure out who's right or wrong. And I was like, you know what? As much crap as I give the refs, that just goes to show you at times how hard their job is because they got to watch the backfield, and you don't have somebody like standing right at the line of scrimmage to determine that. So depending on your angle as the guy behind the ref behind the quarterback or wherever, you got to make that determination from an unclear angle. So I got respect for the refs, but I'll let Junior fire away here.
I wonder if it was because it was a forward pass maybe, and you know, it was something in front of him. I don't know. I don't wear a zebra shirt, but one thing I heard you say was you said execution. When you look at last year, there was so many people on Twitter, a lot of Bears fans, a lot of stupid Packer fans, just NFL fans in general, that were saying, man, Justin Fields can be good. We think he sucks. He needs help. It doesn't matter if he gets help, blah, blah, blah. Just bad take after bad take after bad take. Ryan Poles does his job. He goes out there, gets him help with the offensive line, which I still think is a little bit of work in progress, but I think we'll get there eventually within time. And then goes out there and gets him a playmaker in DJ Moore, and his first pass to DJ Moore is obviously a 62-yard touchdown. So my question to you, and obviously you played in the NFL, 6 points is 6 points. It doesn't matter how you get it, right? If it's all legal, it goes on the scoreboard the same way. What do you say to the people who say Justin Fields had negative air yards on average of 2.9 or whatever it was? Because that word execute, it's not just, hey, Justin getting the ball to Khalil Herbert. It's Justin evading two 300-pound defenders in his way that run a 4.5 40 or 4.6 40. It's Justin getting the ball out in time. It's the offensive line getting to that next level. It's Cody White here making a block for the first time in God knows how long, getting down the field to extend that play so Khalil Herbert can get by him to score. What do you have to say to the people out there that, to me, when they look at that play, right, they're just looking at the box score of, 3 for 3, 139 yards, 2 touchdowns. Holy crap, Justin had a good day. But then when they look at it, they're like, oh, he really didn't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that coming in, you're only going to get so many reps. And, the reps he had, he operated the plays cleanly. He executed the plays cleanly. I think even he said in his press conference, he wished he had an opportunity to throw more passes. But each coach has their own philosophy in terms of the preseason. You look at the Denver Broncos; they played Russell Wilson the other day.
They almost got him killed.
they might get him killed. Honestly,
I turned the game on and I thought it was a NFL replay.
It felt like a playoff game the way he's getting laid out a few times.
Right, but I mean, at the end of the day, he went in there and did what he's supposed to do. So he's going to get more time. Obviously, he wants to do more, but health is going to be the biggest winner in preseason. We want to get game one to where everything's going to be on the table and we have all our guys. So the end of the day, he did his job. The offense executed when they were in with the opportunities they were given, and that's all you can ask for. I mean, what if that screen he throws that ball in the dirt and we don't get that ball off? Now you got everybody saying,
and the DJ Moore one, it was thrown behind him. You know, it wasn't a perfect pass to DJ Moore, but DJ is so good, and this is where it's so nice to finally have skill guys. That where Justin doesn't have to do everything perfect, and he'll have other guys to Justin's going to help them. They're going to help Justin. That's how it should work as a football team. He shouldn't have to carry it. And those screen passes, negative air yards for 129 passing yards, that puts that on full display that this year he shouldn't have to do everything himself, because skill wins at the end of the day. Execution is the foundation, but skill is what puts you over the top. Go ahead.
One more thing, and everyone wants to go at Justin, and yeah, we get it. You know, we Braggs has been talking about it all training camp. If he wants to see the long ball more in practice, we all do, right? We all want to see that 70-yard touchdown, whatever. But one thing I found really quick, and I want to bring it up because I talked to Greg yesterday, and he had brought up Patrick Mahomes. Right. And Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL, hands down. We would all agree with that. But when you look over Patrick Mahomes' career since 2019, this is pretty interesting. In 2019, his average length of touchdown passes was 17.3 air yards. In 2020 was 13. 21 was 8.5, and 22 was 4.5. He threw 41 touchdowns. Only one traveled more than 19 yards last year. So that's why when I see people say, oh, the negative 2.9 yards, if that was Patrick Mahomes, number 15, in a Bears jersey doing it, or even in his Chiefs jersey, nobody would bat an eye about it. We would all sit here and be like, oh, my God, Patrick Mahomes just threw that ball. If Aaron Rodgers did it, which we've seen him do it, nobody's going to question it. Is it like hate for the Bears? Is it like the NFL just like, we don't like you? Is the NFL fans not liking the Bears? It's just, to me, it's comical how people will come at Justin in every avenue possible when there is quarterbacks around the NFL doing the same exact thing. And Jason, you had mentioned it, you get offenses that, you want to fit around certain players or whatever it may be. Maybe this is what fits Justin. And if this is what Justin has to do to get me 30 passing touchdowns a year, again, 6 is 6, and I don't care how he gets it personally.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, your job as a quarterback is to get the ball to your playmakers, and what we saw yesterday, him getting the ball to his playmakers, speed and space, creates opportunity, creates explosive plays. And like you mentioned, all those Patrick Mahomes stats, like you said, how many of those passes, were to Tyreek Hill, in which he, caught a 10-yard pass and took it the distance, caught an intermediate route and took it the distance. So at the end of the day, man, it's just about, quarterback, getting the ball to your guys, letting them, get yak yardage, letting them create on their own. And then when you have an opportunity, making a big play, like we've seen Justin do many times last year, with his legs or so. Now, I do want to see more deep balls. I do want to see him take more shots this year, and I think that'll come. But, as the flow of the game, as an offense, a lot of times you got to take what the defense is giving you.
Well, I've been busting my guy Mark Carmen's balls on our show here because we got into a little debate after Family Fest that I think it's been clear to observe at training camp that they really have the underneath stuff, in check. Like, it's consistent to DJ Moore when Chase Claypool was healthy. Everything underneath, slant routes, check downs, and 7-on-7s. For the most part, they were clean sessions where Justin's getting the ball out quickly. But the thing that stood out to me was like, wow, this is like the first camp. And I've been going to training camp since they started going to Bourbonnais. So I'm up to almost like 25 years of going to camp. And the observation I made was we haven't seen anything deep. And you mentioned that too. And it's like, I said I was concerned at one point because one day we had an ugly practice where they couldn't connect on anything, whether it was underneath or deep. And that's where I think it started to kind of go astray as far as the conversation and this observation I'm making. But I've been going to camp for 25 years, and you'll see 4 deep balls a day, even if it's from the second or third team. But mostly, like, even Rex Grossman would air one out on the Hall of Fame defenses one time. I mean, so many reps in a 2-hour practice. And, like, I'm hearing different, excuses. Oh, they don't want to show it at practice, which I don't really buy. They're working on the underneath stuff and putting that focus there because they're not worried about the deep ball. I can understand that rationalization a little more, but it still doesn't make a lot of sense that we didn't see any. The only one we saw at camp was a double move by Tyler Scott where he shook, I think, Terrell Smith out of his cleats, and then he's wide open 50 yards downfield. Now, not every deep ball is going to be wide open. You're going to be contested. And the only reason I was like, it would be great to get a few of these in is because they're just as much chemistry as you need on a slant. Though DJ Moore is going to be going deep too. And I understand the dink and dunk is going to set up the long ball. And I have no doubt those are coming, and Justin Fields throws a good deep ball. But at the same time, he needs to build that chemistry just as much on a slant route as they do on a deep pass of where Chase Claypool wants it, in a certain way, how Justin Fields throws it, where DJ Moore wants it. And so maybe concern was a bridge too far of my observation that day. But at the same time, did you find it weird at training camp that we really didn't see any of that? It was mostly intermediate to underneath. And then I guess my double-barreled, long-winded question here is the other question I had that I honestly couldn't answer, and this was one of the main reasons I wanted to bring you on, is does the defense game plan every day at training camp to practice against Justin Fields and set up a quarterback spy because every defense has to spy Fields? Or are they practicing defense that they're going to play against Jordan Love and other quarterbacks that have a totally different skill set from Justin Fields? That was a question I really couldn't understand or answer.
Yeah, in turn, I'll go with the first part, the deep ball question. That is, I haven't seen a lot of deep balls. I think I've seen one. I've seen another one besides the Tyler Scott one. It was a DJ Moore, and it was
that closed practice the first day.
Yeah, I saw it was a DJ Moore, and it was I don't even think they did complete it. They did.
Yeah, it was down the right sideline. The Bears put it on their social media.
Yeah, but there was another one. There's another one that was outside practice on the closer field that we get to watch practice on to DJ Moore on the left side of that field, and they didn't connect on that one. So, I don't know what Getsy's doing in terms of trying to take those shot plays. I think those shot plays are important just because it keeps the defense honest. You know what I mean? If you taking underneath routes and intermediate routes, well, guess what? Them safeties will start to cheat down.
They're going to sit down. Yep.
They're going to sit down. So I think you do have to try to throw it over their head, to keep them honest. Yesterday, unfortunately, we saw my guy, PJ Walker, try to take a deep shot. And, obviously that was, he's got to take the check down there. The safety's over the top. He's deeper than the deepest. So that would have never been a completion, interception, just like it was. And going to your point in terms of the defense, game planning for our offense in practice and training camp practice, no, so offensively and defensively, what the coordinators do is they have an installation calendar, right? They have installs, and everything they're installing for that day is what they're going to work on that day. The defense may have blitzes that day. Those are blitzes they're going to run that day. And the defense may get the better of the offense that day because they're running a lot of blitzes, and the protections that the offenses have installed that day may not call for you to pick up that nickel blitz. You know what I'm saying? Because they're not working on that. Do they have protections and answers for that? Yes, but they're not working on it that day. So they're going to run what they've installed that day. The defense is going to run what they've installed that day. And that's why we've saw so many ebbs and flows. Defense wins one day, the offense wins another day, because they're just installing and running what they've installed at practice.
Okay, that makes sense. Gives me a little more clarity. Again, for everybody in the chat, and I've been getting it a lot on Twitter because it's simple. Now that I try to be a pretend reporter, these simple observations I make sometimes, if I don't stay in my meatball lane, I'm in trouble. So,
and for me too, I mean, that's how we did it. That's how, Getsy said in his press conference, he said it that the first day that the offense got, the defense really showed up, the offense played poorly. He said that, hey, we're not trying to scheme our defense. But I'm not in those meetings now, so that's how we did it. I know Getsy said that as well, but that's what we did in the past. So,
well, I appreciate it. Junior, go ahead with one. We'll do a couple more, and then we'll let Jason get back to his morning. Got football coming up here at noon. I know Jason's going on another podcast here later tonight with Brendan Segru, a good buddy of mine and a great follow on Twitter. So I don't want to take up too much of his time, but Jason, we really appreciate you answering some of this stuff and giving us a better perspective on this football team.
What are I'll just get straight to it. What are your expectations for the team this year?
Yeah, I got high expectations. I know there's a lot of optimism with all the moves that we made, and especially offensively, right? You've got to take the next step. Second year in the system for a lot of guys. You've added weapons, you've added pieces. I just feel like now it's just no excuses. There's no excuses not to put a good product on the field. Defensively, we added some pieces. So, I expect this team to contend, with being one of the better teams, in the NFC and contending for the NFC North. You look around the NFC North, there's still a lot of questions with a lot of these teams. Minnesota still has questions, despite what they did last year. The Lions has questions. Green Bay, they're trying to figure out, can Jordan Love be their next quarterback in line? So I think it's wide open. I think it really is. But what I was encouraged to see yesterday, I know it's preseason, I know it's game one, but I was encouraged to see guys flying around, guys making plays, guys tackling. Yeah, where there's some missed tackles, yes, but there were a lot of great tackles that were made. And it's good to see that because the way they practice now is so different from how they've done things, how practice has been ran in the past. Like, there's no tackling to the ground. And the pass rush is so tempered down to where, hey, you get anywhere near a quarterback, yeah, you got to get away from a quarterback, but it's a tempo pass rush. So that offensive line is not getting a realistic look. Right. Quarterback's not getting a realistic look. These receivers, we're talking about deep balls. Well, these receivers, they're not getting a realistic look because, hey, we've seen DJ Moore make a lot of catches. We've seen a lot of these receivers make a lot of catches in practice. When a game, you got to look at it like, man, that safety would have, decapitated him.
Right.
But he can't in practice because of practice is smart. You know what I'm saying? So It was good to see that we got a realistic look, a real live football action to see what some of these guys can do. And it was good to see a lot of the young guys make the most of their opportunities with the limited amount of reps they get in practice. I mean, those third and fourth string guys, they're only getting 2 reps, maybe 1 rep here, 2 reps here. So you got to get mental reps. Mental reps, it means you're watching the play. You got to envision yourself in your position during that play. You know what I mean? You got to go through in your mind because you're not going through it physically. So that way, when you're out there in preseason, you know what you're doing. You can just play fast.
Last question, and then I'll let Greg go. One guy who I know a lot of people were super high on last year. I don't know why you draft a rookie at 25 years old that I'm getting absolutely sick of seeing is Velus Jones. He's gonna end up causing this team a football game. It's going to happen. Is he a surprise cut at the end of camp? Does he make the 53-man roster? What do you think happens with him? Seeing it again yesterday, I think it was on that punt. Him bobbling it, losing it, and then obviously, the Titans getting possession of it again. The last thing I want, and you had mentioned it, is the Vikings to me have gotten worse. The Packers don't really know what's going on with the quarterback. The Lions to me are an average team, still have to show a little bit more. So as far as the division being wide open, I think it is. I don't think it's the Bears' year yet, in my opinion. But if it were to happen, it wouldn't surprise me. Last thing I want is this total Bears luck. I've seen it my whole life is week 17 against the Packers, I believe, and Velus Jones fumbles a ball. We end up losing. That's what will happen to me because I've seen it my whole life.
Yeah.
How long are they going to let this go on? Is it something Poles is going to keep letting happen because that's his guy? He has something invested in him. What do you think happens with him?
I don't know, man. I mean, yesterday, it's just like, and I've never returned a punt. You know what I mean? I know it's one of the hardest things to do, especially in Soldier Field. Like, when the weather gets bad, I'm not going to sit here and say I know how to, but I know the rules, right? I know the rules in terms of, the fundamentals and the rules. And what I mean by rules is that ball hits the ground. You got to make a poison call or a danger call to get everybody away from the ball because you can't. I mean, that ball takes a bounce. You're trying to field it. They're right in front of you. You know what I mean? You're going to.
The defender's most of the time is within 5 yards of you. He's ready to hit you.
He's right there. I mean, So I just don't think he has a feel for it. I just, some guys have a feel for it. Obviously, Devin had a feel for it. He's one of the greatest to ever do it. He had a feel for it, and he could judge that ball. Like, if that ball did take a bounce, he had a good, he was so good to where he could get that ball to bounce and accelerate full speed. But he was smart enough to know that, hey, you know what? There's balls I'm not going to field because I'm not going to put my team in jeopardy. And I think that at this point, what we saw yesterday, it's got to be open competition. It has to be. That job has to be up for grabs. And if it isn't, then, if I'm a player in that locker room, I'm like, well, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, what are we trying to accomplish? You know what I mean? So I don't know what Coach Hightower is going to do. I don't know what, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what Eberflus is going to do. I don't know if they're going to make a change on the depth chart. But
it's scary because even if he's clean the next 2 weeks and shows that he learned from that mistake, now that this one's on the books,
Yeah.
It's going to be in the back of your head all season. And, you know, it's a tough thing. And we talked about it yesterday, and it does feel like it's a little too fast for him. Like he can handle the kick return because nobody's coming at him, because it's not just tracking the ball and the wind and end over end on the ball, how it's coming at you, but it's also the gunners coming down the field, and you got to have a feel for all of that. Like you said, Devin, what made him so special was that he just had that feel and could flow a certain way to bring guys towards him and then cut, bang, and the rest was history. And it was a lot of fun to watch.
I'm looking
I think Devin probably, if we signed him right now, I think he'd probably take a couple. Don't you think he could probably take a couple?
Man, Devin's one of my best friends, so we talk.
Can you make a call, please?
We talk all the time, man. Devin is in full coach mode. He coaches his youngest son's
right
now, so he's a super dad. He's a Hall of Fame dad right now, just like he is a player. But I think to your point, Junior, the only way I think Velus makes this team, he's got to be lights out at receiver or wherever they put him.
But Jason, you had just said it, right? Like, if he's not doing the punt return, somebody needs to get a chance. And that brings us to my next point of, I agree 100%. If you're holding up a position just because of all this so-called talent and potential you have and what you did at the NCAA level, sometimes doesn't always correlate or translate to the NFL. You've seen it a million times. Us as Bears fans, NFL fans, we've all seen it. I'm looking right now at the depth chart. And when you look at punt return and kick returner, and we'll just do punt returner, you have Dante Pettis and DJ Moore after him. And then when you go to the wide receivers, he's with the third team. So it almost sits here and it's like, if you're with the third team in the NFL, you're not seeing the field. And clearly, if you can't do punt returns,
well, and what's
the point of you being on the roster?
And they're not going to put DJ Moore back there.
No, 100%.
And I'll literally run on the field if they try something like that. But
it's. Oh, go ahead.
Well, but they did let Tyler Scott try to field a few punts. The problem with Tyler is he's displayed some hand issues. He even got a ball punched out yesterday. So ball security, he hasn't got locked down yet. So even though he hasn't done it in the punt return situation yet, it's still going to be a dicey thing to trust Tyler. And I think this now has opened the door for Dante Pettis, who took Velus's punt return duties last season when this was an issue. And he hasn't been practicing. He's been on the inactive, injured, non-injured football list here at training camp. But I think now with this happening, it's opened the door back up for Dante Pettis to make this team. So we'll have to see that play out. Quickly, a rapid fire for you. I wanted to try to ask you a few questions.
All right.
Who in December, who's the starting running back of this team?
Oh man, you put me on the spot. I don't know. I still say Khalil, man. I love Roshan. I love what he brings to the table. I think Khalil is on a mission right now. I think it's his job, and I think he's going to do well this year. I think he's going to take advantage of having the opportunity to be the number one. But who knows? They may do a running back by committee, but I say Khalil right now.
Closer to 10 wins or closer to 6 wins?
Oof.
If you had to bet one or the other,
I think we're closer to 10. I'm say closer to 10.
Out of here. You don't believe that. You don't believe that. You don't believe that.
Yesterday morning we're in Twitter Spaces and we.
What you think, Junior?
Listen, Jason. Again, you played with the Bears for quite a while.
I'm with you, Jason. That's
fine. That's fine.
It's going to be more than 6. So is that close?
Just hear me out for a second, and you can ask Greg. I'm a very respectful person, but I like to see things in reality.
You're the expert. What you think, man?
I'm not an expert by any means. You know a lot more than I do. I'm just giving my opinion because I'm a fan. I think they're at 6. I think they're at 6. You can lean in. That's fine. You're good. When you look at the schedule, do they have an easy schedule? Yes, it is a particularly easy schedule. But this is what a lot of Bears fans thought last year, and Greg was one of them who thought that.
I didn't think that last year.
That's fine. That's fine. But you look at this year. Has this team improved? Yes. But you think teams in the NFL look at the Chicago Bears on their schedule and they're like, shit, we got to go to Chicago and play these guys? You think they fear the Chicago Bears? Because I'll tell you what, I don't think teams fear the Chicago Bears by any means.
I'm saying they're going to win more than 6 games. That's what I'm saying.
And I think
they're going to win 8 games. I think they'll definitely. I think 6. They're going to win 6, but I think they'll be at like, 8, possibly 9. Is that close to 10?
That's where, and yesterday morning we were on Spaces.
It's closer to 10.
Closer to 10. Closer to 10.
Junior,
I'm not saying they're going to win 10 games. I'm saying they're going to win more than 6.
And
they're going to win more than 6.
I agree with that. And Junior has them at 6. I have them at 9. Yesterday morning we were on a Twitter Spaces.
Do you have them at 6 wins? Do you have them at 6 wins?
I have them at 6 right now.
He's crazy. And he thinks that the thing that frustrates me about it, not only is he picking 6, but he thinks that that's a good improvement. And I think that would be disaster.
You doubled your win total.
I don't like that narrative that it's like, oh, this is a progressive year if they get 6 wins. That is something.
I don't think either. Like I don't sit like. Yeah, for me, like if you just win 6 games, I think it's a disaster. You know what I mean? Like I think you just win 6 games. Like now they're going to be. It depends on how
There's context.
Yeah, like how everybody played and stuff like that. Like we won 3 games last year, and everybody was still optimistic. Oh, but Fields did this and this and that. It was the funniest thing I ever saw, and we talk about it all the time. You win 3 games, right? You win 3 games, and they're not trying to burn the city down like that. Like you know what I mean? Like it was
yeah.
Weird.
And I agree. I disagree with Junior that like when you talk about teams fearing Chicago, Well, and that's the thing, Junior. Like you talk about teams fearing Chicago, they're going to fear Justin Fields. Like that's
fine. They feared him last year. It was very evident they feared him last year.
Fear Chicago. I'm not saying they're going to fear the Bears. They shouldn't. We were a 3-1 team last year. You know what I mean? I just think the way the schedule sets up, and some of the things that the teams are facing, they got a lot of issues too. You know what I mean? Like week 2, Tampa Bay. Hell, who's the quarterback?
We don't know.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They play the Commanders? Washington.
Okay, so
you see what I mean? Like you got to go through the schedule and look at their storyline. Week 1, Green Bay. Yeah, Green Bay's had our number. Jordan Love? Question mark. That's 3 right there.
All right, so Junior derailed I'll blame Junior for derailing my rapid fire session, and that's okay. I want to let you go. I love it. No, and Junior's very passionate, and he's more than happy to be proven wrong, and we're all hoping that he gets proven wrong, but he always is kind of been on the cynical side, and that's why I love him, because I'm the meatball. I'm the eternal optimist. I'm always going to try to see the best in my team and the players I root for.
My whole thing, Jason, I'll just give you a little bit of context to it. I've been watching this team since 2001. Mm-hmm. And in the 22 years now I've been watching this team, this organization has not given me any optimism, any way to feel that, oh, we're just going to turn it around out of nowhere. It's 4 years of sucking, and then you get that 1 year where you get 11 wins, right? I mean, in my life of watching it, we've made the playoffs 5 times. 5 times. I can tell you in the last 15 years, each game we've beat the Packers, and we want to sit here and say we're going to take the North. That's the problem I have with it. Is this organization, the front office, the franchise, the McCaskey family has done not a damn thing in my life to make me feel that we're just going to turn it around.
Hey, things are changing.
Do you feel like I don't know if we'll take North. I think we have an opportunity to take North just because of the landscape of how it is right now. You know what I mean?
That I can agree with, is because the Vikings have gotten worse. Yeah. You said it perfect. That Jordan Love, the most important, not just important position in football, most important position in sports, they don't have figured out. They don't know what the hell is going on over there. And the Lions, as good as the season they had last year, they still have to prove themselves. Are they legit, or are they still an average team? So I do agree with you on that.
All right. So, okay, real quick, and then I'm going to let you go. And then one day I'll bring Junior around. We can throw him in the mud or something. But we love Junior. He keeps me.
He's right. I mean, hey, you have high hopes and then they get dashed. He's right.
He keeps me balanced. He keeps the balance here, and that's fine. But we're gonna get him when he's wrong. And if he's right, I'm gonna shut my Twitter account off. Gary Ross said, J-Mac, who's the favorite guy that you've ever blocked for and played with?
I mean, a lot of great backs I had an opportunity to block for. Like, I can't pick one. They all have their own unique style, but they're all good. I mean, Thomas Jones had a different style than Forte. You know, Adrian Peterson was great. Seti B was great as well. Just a lot. I mean, a lot of different styles of running. So I can't really pick just one.
Okay, well, I'm always partial to Thomas, and you said Thomas first, so we'll take that as your. I love Thomas, and that was great.
If I'm with Thomas, I'll tell Thomas.
That's a good one. All right, real quick, because we didn't get to touch on the rookies, but Zach Pickens gets a sack. You mentioned guys flying around the football. Tyreek Stevenson flying everywhere yesterday. Got a lot of reps. I thought he looked great. Darnell Wright, some of the reps he got on the one toss right to I think it was Khalil Herbert. You saw him set the edge, turn his guy, and even bump another guy and open that up. 10 yards for Herbert. The rookies were on display yesterday. Anything that stood out to you in regards to the rookie class? Because I think it's starting to look promising, and that's a great thing for the Bears.
Yeah, they played well. Like you mentioned, Tyreek Stevenson, he did well. He's a sound tackler, and that's what he was known for. Matt Eberflus said that's why he's here. He put that on display. Had a lapse in coverage, but you're going to make mistakes as a rookie and you rebound. So it was good to see that play. They were running cover 2. He didn't carry the receiver enough to let the safety get over the top. But then he knew he made that mistake. Then the next play, he comes back and he blows up that the screen pass they try to throw to the receiver. So it's just making a mistake and coming back and making a play off of it. You mentioned Darnell Wright. He did well. A lot of rookies who we haven't heard a lot about, made some plays as well.
Man, Baskerville.
That's what I was going to say. Baskerville made some plays.
He's got a great name too, man.
It's an awesome name.
Everybody had a sack yesterday, but I just like seeing guys who – are the underdogs who don't get a lot of reps. And when they get in live action, they get a chance to show what they can do. I was one of those guys. So I root for those guys. So it was just encouraging to see as a whole, the sacks and the takeaways we saw defensively yesterday.
And it's encouraging to see because most, and correct me if I'm wrong, most NFL teams are made up of 4th to 7th round picks and undrafted players. You don't have a million first and second round picks running around, putting the whole team together. So to see players drafted in the 3rd round or later, or undrafted free agents, to see them, not in practice, get that time, and then when they get on the field, they, I guess you could say ball out. It's good to see. It's really good to see.
100%.
Well, Jason, you spent an hour with us here now, and I really owe you one, and I really appreciate that. There's a lot of people here in the live chat that I know really appreciate it, and we're all huge fans of your career, and now we're rooting you on here. As now, congratulations again as becoming the sideline reporter for ESPN 1000, the home network of the Chicago Bears. So we'll be following your coverage along all season, but I want to thank you again for coming on, and maybe I'll get you a bottle of whiskey or something for all the time you took and having to put up with Junior here. So I appreciate you.
Jason, I got one last question for you, sir, and this is coming from a fan standpoint. So back the Super Bowl year, I was 12 years old, man, and I thought, just like everyone else, when Devin returned that touchdown, what was going through the mind on the sideline? Was it like, holy shit, oh my God? Like, did you as a player think like it's over? Because me being a stupid 12 years old, I thought it was over. I thought I was going to get to enjoy a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, because that year, whenever Devin returned, whenever he had a return for a touchdown, we won the game.
Right.
Yeah. It was like, wow, like first play of the game, like we're finna roll these dudes. Like we're gonna go. We're gonna go. Like I'm looking at T. Jones, he's looking at me, and I'm like, yeah, it's it. It's here. It's time. We're going to do it. And obviously it went the other way. But to say all that, I mean, it's just a great opportunity to be a part of a great season like that with a lot of great guys in the locker room. And, we appreciated all the Bears fans. And, we didn't get the job done. And it still hurts to this day. But at the same time, we're glad that we'll have a season like that. For you guys, for the Bears fans, for the passionate guys, like you guys are passionate. You're doing this show because you care about the organization. You care about the team, even though Junior thinks we're only going to win.
I want to be proved wrong. I want to be proved wrong. Trust me. Trust me.
You guys as the fans, like for me, man, when I put on that uniform, I wanted to make sure I was a great representation of all the greats that came before me that wore the uniform. I wore that. I played, for my teammates. I played for my last name. I played for the fans. And that's what we do it for. So without you guys, there's no us. So I appreciate you guys and thanks for your time.
Well, that means a lot. And you know what? Now that you mentioned that and you said you were best friends with Devin Hester, which anytime you guys want to, take me out, I'll come out. I'll buy lunch just to hang out with you two because Devin's my guy. Devin knows who I am. And maybe this is the gift I'll give you is when I was a young buck coming to training camp, harassing you guys, making you sign my football, take a picture with me. Bourbonnais was my heaven. And I love House Hall, but I like Bourbonnais
Yeah.
was for me 10 times better. Maybe that's a different conversation for a different day, but I made a DVD back in the day. Me and my buddy Kevin Marchino, we made this hour-long DVD of all of Devin's highlights. And it's like every return he had his first 2 seasons in the league, sprinkled in with a couple commercials he was in and all that stuff. We put music to it. And it totally looks like a 12-year-old made it, but it's the greatest thing in the world. And it'll take you back to the glory days. And maybe I'll say, I gave Devin a couple copies a few years ago, and I'll give you a copy of what we call the Devin Hester Chronicles. It's my pride and joy. So maybe that'll be my gift to you for spending an hour with us Yahoos here today.
I'm sure he still has. He loves stuff like that, man. So
well, because he did a signing, so I brought my copy to get signed, and then he remembered because I used to harass him at camp. And he hooked me up with some stuff. And he was like, let me have this. And I was like, at the time, that was my only copy. And I was like, Devin, this is my only copy, dude. And he's like, can I have it? I was like, I will make you a copy, but you cannot. I felt so bad to tell Devin Hester he could not have this. I was like, no, you can't. And his wife was like, let him have his DVD, Devin. And I'm like, Devin, I promise you, I will make you copies. So then I went and made copies. We even made like DVD covers, and I'd rip out all the old DVDs I had and slide them into, and we were like selling them back in the day. And like, so then I made 2 of them just a couple of years ago. And when his bobblehead day, I gave it to him at the game. So he has 2. I'm going to hook you up with 1. Thank you again for all your time this morning. We appreciate you, and I know everybody in the chat did as well. So we'll let you cut you loose, and we'll catch you down the road.
All right, fellas, stay safe.
Have a good one, man. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That is Jason McKie, fullback of the Chicago Bears in the Super Bowl days, the Lovey Smith days, and now ESPN 1000 analyst and sideline reporter for the Chicago Bears radio network, which is on ESPN 1000. They're doing a great job over there. So we appreciate his time. I know some people have raised saying it's dope. Yeah, because last year when we did our tailgates at CHGO, we had our CHGO Bears tailgates, we're going to have some more this year, and they're going to be really great. But I'd bring my whole I brought a TV, put it in the back of my truck, and I was playing it on a loop at the tailgate last year. 'Cause it's a hype video. It's a total hype video. It gets you hyped for the season. Every year, right before the season starts, I watch it one time just to get in the mode. So I cannot post it on Twitter. It is on YouTube, but because there's music that I don't have the rights to, if you search Devin Hester Chronicles, you can kind of see it on there. But some of the music got clipped out because of DMCA, copyright strikes. But it does exist on YouTube. So you can go search that if you're watching this right now, and you'll see what Greg was doing in 2006 when he should have had a job or something. I don't know what the hell. I was just out of high school, and I was too busy smoking weed and making a Devin Hester DVD and going to training camp every day. So, but it's my pride and joy, and I still have it to this day, and I still watch it all the time. And when friends come over, I make them watch it, and they're like, why are we watching this? And I'm like, just shut up and watch it. And the thing that the thing that is amazing about it, and because I've watched it so many times, is it's the Devin Hester Chronicles, but it becomes the Brendan Iambadejo highlight reel, because when you watch this in his first 2 years, every single touchdown, Brendan Iambadejo springs him loose. He has the key block on almost every single one of his touchdowns. And that just goes to show you, as great as Devin Hester was, and kick returning and punt returning at times, he could make it feel like he was doing it all himself. It's not. And you need guys around you to help you out.
And I think Devin is the best ever at what he did. But after Brendan left, after 07 or 08, whatever it was, Devin wasn't returning 7 kicks a year. Now, granted, people didn't kick to him as much anymore often, but it definitely was somebody he would have rather have to help him, leap into the end zone. So it's funny, bro. It's the first time in a while I've heard that name.
Did you like how I tried to slide into the friend circle with J-Mac?
I did.
Hey, go on.
Hey, I'll pay for lunch. I'll take you guys out.
Let's go. I just want to hang out for a minute.
I thought when he said
Chris Farley thing,
when he said
we're gonna break down every fucking return when we go to lunch.
When you asked him closer to 6 or closer to 10, and he got all like this, I thought he was going to jump through and beat my ass. I really did. I thought he was going to beat the living shit out of me.
I loved it. Hey, and that's what you're great for. You because anybody that was in the spaces with us yesterday morning would have thought me and you were going to kill each other at one point. And you know what? That's just what it's all about. And J Mac, I think, appreciates that is his passion at the end of the day. One of us going to be right. One of us going to be wrong. At the end of the day, none of that really matters. At the end of the day, we're both just passionate about this.
And everyone in the chat, I see your guys' comments coming at me saying I'm not a fan. Chubbs, you can say what you want. I don't. You guys can say what you want. It's not going to upset me. I'm not going to cry. I'm still going to get my 8 to 9 hours of sleep. I promise. It's not upsetting me.
And Chubbs, no, he's asking, didn't Devin Hester get hurt the next year? And Bernard Berrian, not Perryman, Bernard Berrian, he did not have 6 return touchdowns.
He did not.
They did have Daniel Manning come in and start to return some kicks when Devin went through that lull there was like a 5-year period where teams were kicking away from him. And that I think started to frustrate Devin. And then he tried to do too much and it started to get in his head, because he couldn't figure out how to adjust off of the way teams were game planning against him. And then he eventually broke loose again in the back half of his career, which I think should have stamped him as a first ballot Hall of Famer. It'd have been one thing if it was just a flash in the pan for 2 years, similar to what we saw with Dante Hall and the Kansas City Chiefs. But he broke pretty much every individual all-time return record in those first 2 years. So had he retired after his first 2 years, personally, I think he deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. But then when you fast forward to the end of his career and he had this resurgence and renaissance moment where he had like a 5-6 year period where he became the Devin Hester we all know and love again, I think that should have stamped himself as a first ballot Hall of Famer. And the fact that he's not, I think, is disrespectful. And I'm sure we could have had Jason on for another hour talking about that, and I know he'd agree with us. So, you know, the first 2 years they haven't put him in. And it's every year they don't, they're going to piss me off more and more about it. And they're going to, you know, and I think they're going to piss off a lot of players in this league because the players know what he meant to the league and the game of football. So, you know, the players speak for itself. And,
well,
and go ahead.
When you get a guy like Deion Sanders, who a lot said before Devin was the best at returning, come out publicly and say, this man is the greatest to ever do it. It's not even close and deserves to be in the Hall of Fame just because of that. So you're going to get current players who grew up watching this guy pissed off that their favorite players out of there. And then you're going to get players before Devin and that played with Devin. They're like, hey, this guy beat us single-handedly. Why is he not in the Hall of Fame? He did this so many times. I remember you go back to the game in 2000. It was Devin's second year. So 2007, the year after the Super Bowl. That game, it was a 3:00 game in like November, December against Denver, against Jay Cutler.
2 touchdowns.
We're getting our ass whooped in every facet of the game. Devin returns 2 touchdowns. I remember the second one. It was the greatest thing ever seeing as a kid. Ran it into the tunnel. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Single-handedly beat teams. The Monday night Arizona game. You know, granted the defense helped a lot, but Devin returning the touchdown at the end, like. How is this man not, and whether it's first ballot or not, he should have got in on the second ballot. Yep. It's complete bullshit. And again, and I'm not the person that likes to be like, oh, people just hate the Bears because it's the Bears. But then you look at things like that and it's like, yeah, these writers and these voters hate the Bears for some reason, and they're not letting Devin in because
they have an opportunity to put Steve Mongo McMichael in before he passes away. And I think I like when the Baseball Hall of Fame put Ron Santo in after he died.
It was a slap in the face.
Like, what the fuck are you doing? If you're gonna put him in,
it's a pity thing. It's a pity thing. 100%.
Like, Jesus Christ. Like,
exactly.
This gatekeeping that the voters have. Like, if you're gonna put him in before he dies. If he dies, then just leave.
And my thing is like
even more of a slap in the face.
And my thing is, if you're going to put him in now, and granted, it's whether it's because he has ALS or, you know, whatever it may be.
He is the second most.
Why didn't you put him in 20 years ago? The numbers haven't changed.
He has the second most sacks in Chicago Bears history. 1, 3, and 4 are all in the Hall of Fame. Richard Day being number 1, and Dan Hampton being 3. He has the 4th most sacks of all time as a defensive tackle in the entire NFL since 1982 when they started recording sacks or whatever the fuck the number is. Steve McMichael belongs in the Hall of Fame. It's not even close. He has more sacks than Warren Sapp in his career. Warren Sapp is in the Hall of Fame. Period. End of discussion. So they better get him in. But we went on a little Hall of Fame tangent there. We got a little bit here before I got to go. Got a cool little interview coming up here in a half hour with somebody I won't reveal, so I'll let him promote it first. But yeah, just going back to, when we talk about rare talent like Devin Hester and having that help with Brendan Iambadejo, you look at Justin Fields reversing back to, this season and this team and yesterday's game and to see immediately the impact of DJ Moore specifically, but just in general, those first two plays looks like he may actually get some help this year.
It looks promising, right? And you're going to get people watching this and you're going to see this on Twitter of like, I know everyone in the chat loves that word meatball, but these meatball Bears
meatball
fans,
Island's kind of catching the
these
fever
meatball
right
Bears fans who don't know what they're talking about. Listen, again, Justin will be the first one to say he didn't do much, okay? But it's not always about Justin. And Jason said it, and I said this yesterday to you on the phone. He did his job. Get the ball in your playmakers' hands. And last year, Justin didn't have playmakers. He did his job. Got it into one of the better receivers in the NFL's hand, DJ Moore, and let him did his job. The offensive line did their job. I hope it's a precursor of what we see going into the regular season starting on September 10th against the damn Packers. I want to beat them so goddamn bad.
Chubbs,
I saw it. I saw it. Chubbs. 5 weeks ago, my answer was no. 2 weeks ago, I don't know if it was I woke up, whatever it was. I do have the Bears winning week 1 as of right now. I do. A lot of things can change within that time, but I do have them winning. I for the first time in a while, I am not afraid of the Green Bay Packers.
Right.
Now, am I going to sit here and say the Bears are better than the Green Bay Packers? There's a lot to be seen, right? A lot of things can happen from now until January 5th when the season ends or whatever it is. But right now, when you put roster to roster, I'm not afraid of the Green Bay Packers. This isn't one of the things where the Bears are up by 4 and they have 80 yards to go with 20 seconds and I'm shitting my pants because they have Aaron Rodgers. No, I'm not afraid of these guys. So when people want to say the division is wide open, yes, I do agree to an extent. I just think the Bears have a little bit to go until they get there. And there's nothing wrong with that. But yes, Chubbs, I do have them winning week 1.
All right. The chat feels like they got a victory here. They broke you down enough to believe in the Bears versus the Packers, which is great. That's a great sign because you're one of the more, level-headed, cynical, whatever the word. Real. I don't like when people try to attach themselves to realists. That's going into the Dan Wiederers of the world who think they have the authority on what realism is versus what isn't. And we all understand, hey, I'm a meatball, I'm fanboy, all that stuff. But I've always said, I think a positive perspective can have realism within it. And, and it doesn't mean if somebody's negative or cynical or however those, titles you want to attach to, it doesn't mean that means realism, so I've gone down the weeds when it comes to that discussion. I just think people need to respect other people's opinions across the board. And I've gotten blowback with my Chase Claypool reporting. And I thought it was very disappointing that he pulled up with a hammy and wasn't able to play in that game, because what we saw in the preseason game yesterday was a lot of things we have seen at training camp. Tyreek Stevenson's been flashing. Terrell Lewis, the defensive end's been flashing.
Which I think he makes the team, by the way.
He's definitely making the team. And in fact, because we haven't seen Yannick Ngakoue yet, he's been the best pass rusher on this team since camp has started. DeMarcus Walker got out to the first lead, and now he's been hurt. Not his fault, but at the same time, since he hasn't been on the field, and now Terrell Lewis has this preseason game. I mean, this is the totality of the picture. I'm not saying Terrell Lewis will be the best pass rusher for the whole season, but I'm saying if we're having a power ranking week to week, right now, Terrell Lewis is my best pass rusher that I've seen the last 2.5 weeks. I obviously hope it's Yannick Ngakoue. That's why we paid him $10.5 million, and I'm assuming it will be. And DeMarcus Walker, with the pedigree he has coming from Tennessee and the resume. But Terrell Lewis has a pedigree coming out of Alabama. His problem was he couldn't stay healthy, and he's showing, if he's healthy, that he could be, a diamond in the rough that Ryan Poles has found. So, again, we've seen a lot of these things at camp. the underneath, intermediate, slant routes, check downs. That was on full display with the 2 passes for Justin Fields. And I agreed with Jason. Like, I loved it. Not going to fight it. I'll take the 70-yard touchdowns. I was going crazy after the Herbert one because it was just – the first one was hilariously awesome because it's like, look at this dude, first pass to DJ Moore ever. It doesn't officially count in the record books. It's a moment we'll never forget as Bears fans. It's kind of this jumping off period for Justin to DJ Moore, and it's a touchdown. It's not a first down. It's a 60-yard touchdown. I mean, that was unbelievable. One of those moments like with what I'm doing now where I'm in studio that it really like it's upsetting that I wasn't in the stadium for that moment because that's the moments I live for as a fan in the stands. But, living my dream, I'm certainly not complaining. But then the second touchdown to Khalil Herbert, it's like the same thing. And these are things that we've seen on display here at training camp. And there's been a lot of different things. I think the one thing yesterday that kind of, I'm not going to say came out of nowhere, but wasn't something we had been seeing recently here at camp was the offensive line's been getting their ass kicked at camp. And Jason McKie said it like, because of it's a tempo pass rush and they're not going actually the way you would when live bullets are flying. It's kind of an awkward deal for the trenches to try to get their work in and have an understanding of how it's actually going to be when the season starts. And so this preseason game comes along and all of a sudden guys like Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright, who you've seen at camp get beat more than a few times. Jatiri Carter, same thing. Guys that we've been seeing get beat. Now, there's a lot of reps in camp. It's a 2-hour practice, but they're getting beat, and we're like, oh, this is not looking good. Well, all of a sudden, they looked real good yesterday. All of them did. Tevin Jenkins getting down the field. Carter making blocks. Darnell Wright, I thought was, I understand Tyreek Stevenson was very promising because he got so many reps and was all over the place making plays. But what Darnell Wright did yesterday really has me encouraged because we did not have that kind of protection on the right side. He is enormous. He is enormous. When they ran to the right side with Herbert, like I brought up to you guys earlier.
Was that when he pulled?
Yes, they pulled him. And they pulled him and I believe Komet.
Yeah.
And he just walled it off, turned his body. You see how they say he's good feet and decent speed for a man of his size. And then he just walls it off and you just can't get around him. I mean, he throws one block and then his big ass body throws another block that he's not even just by the other guy gets like the tight end or not the tight end, one of the linebackers or something that's coming through just runs into him and it changes his angle. So I'm very encouraged what I saw with Darnell Wright yesterday. So it's going to be exciting. But going back to my original point on that was, had Chase Claypool not pulled up with a hammy, I think that'd have been another thing. I mean, depending on how everything shook out, that he would have shown because now I'm seeing, okay, what I saw at camp is what we're now seeing in a preseason game. And what I saw at camp, and when we're talking about respecting other people's opinions and everybody in the media, like I got fans busting my balls about my observation about the deep ball. And I respect Jason McKie for kind of being in the same lane as me. I mean, I don't think anybody's saying they won't get it down, but to try to downplay that they, haven't thrown any and it's not a big deal. I'm not saying it's this huge issue, but like it's an observation. And I think sometimes fans get a little too sensitive about, observations we're trying to make at training camp on the fly as everything's happening in the moment. So I appreciate Jason kind of being in the same lane where I was on that regard. But with the Chase Claypool thing, I'm getting it on the opposite end. As much as I'm getting my ass busted by fans about that observation, the media's busted my ass about saying that I thought Chase Claypool looked dominant the first 10 days. Again,
what's wrong with that? Because he did.
Well, and you weren't there, but I was, and that's fine if you want to believe my reporting, and I appreciate that you trust me. But it's just an observation, and it's also something that's happening in the moment. And it's not something I'm projecting, because like Dan Weeder said on his Take the North podcast, that I'm going to get fans gassed up to they think that he's going to have 14 touchdowns. I didn't say that. So if a fan wants to take what I'm saying and then project out of that, I can't control that. I'm having a power ranking week to week, and which way is the angle going on the meter? And Chase Claypool was just played outstanding the first 10 days at camp, and I was so encouraged by what I was seeing between him and that connection with Justin. And had he been healthy for this game, I think the proof would have been in the pudding on the tape. And so it's frustrating to me that now he's hurt, and I have a bad feeling that he's going to miss the rest of training camp or preseason and we're not going to see him until week 1. That's going to throw off, the momentum that he had going. Then I'm going to have to hear I told you so's from Weeder about Chase Claypool, which, maybe not. Maybe he's going to be okay and he'll play well because I thought that chemistry was legitimate. But again, it's like just trying to respect other people's opinion. Like Junior, me and you don't agree. I'll still respect your opinion. We might cuss each other out on it, but I still respect you. You know what I mean? And that's what I love about Jason, the way he come on, he's having fun with us. We even got hot for a minute, but you know what? At the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We just want the Bears to be good one day. And I think, when pride gets in the way of opinion, we all can concede at times we're not always going to be right. I'm certainly not always right. I was wrong about my preseason prediction going to the last year. I had them winning 7 games. They won fucking 3. So, at the end of the day, I got no problem admitting when I'm wrong. Anybody that's followed me for the last 5 years knows how wrong I was about the 2019 Bears. And let's hope that this team isn't the 2019 Bears.
One thing before we get going, and you said we all want the same thing, want the Bears to be good. One thing that's going to get the Bears good is, and I don't want to look forward, but I'm going to, foreshadow a little bit here. The 24 draft. I watched the Carolina Panthers yesterday. And guys, let me tell you what. Second by second, minute by minute, that draft pick is looking sweeter and sweeter.
I taped the game. I haven't gotten a chance to watch
that offensive line is so. And again, there's a lot of things that can change between now and week 1 and week 17. But oh my God, that offensive line is putrid. I felt bad for Bryce Young. He was on his back every single play. Really? It felt like it was terrible. And as a Bears fan, I don't want to see anyone get hurt by any means, but you're sure as hell I want to see them lose 17 games. That'll make me happy, right? But it looked bad for them. So Bears fans, obviously, this season is important to us, but keep an eye on that Panthers team because they do not look good after 1 week. And I have a buddy who I play video games with that lives out in North Carolina, and he's a Panthers fan. And all offseason, he was telling me, he thinks they won the trade, and in the long run, they'll have it. They have Bryce Young, blah, 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 blah. And you do. All that's true. You do have Bryce Young. But, man, it did not look good. And I texted him yesterday about it, and I got no reply. I was left on red. So I'm curious to see what happens. I can't wait till September 10th to start talking my shit to people because it's only going to get worse. Now I'm super excited. And
Elise brings up a good point. Vibing with the dogs is Elise, here on YouTube. We appreciate everybody tuning in. But when you talk about schedule with the Bears, their schedule isn't that easy, especially early on. And it's hard to predict how the schedule is going to line up. Like Jason said, there's a lot of context that comes into play week to week. That's why sometimes preseason predictions are taken with a grain of salt, at least on my end. But those first 4 games, you can have a fairly good idea of what's going to happen, more so than obviously the last 4 games. So, yeah, the Panthers got some tough ones early on in that, it's all about momentum, right? And I'm like kind of seeing this vision of how the Bears can win week 1. Then they go to Tampa week 2, and I think that's a winnable game. They go to the Chiefs week 3. They're going to lose. I'm sorry, Chubbs. I hate to break it to you. Then week 4, they play Denver at home, and I think that's such a pivotal game for them because if it lays out in the way that I think it might, and I understand it definitely could go another way, but week 4, that's such a pivotal game because if the Bears can start 3-1, where they have 4 of their last 5 games of the season at home, now all of a sudden we're cooking. And from the Panthers regard, with their first 6 games being so rough, if they go on, if the losses start piling up, and that's where momentum switches, and now mentality of looking towards next season.
But then you also have to
equity and things.
100%. You have to look at it too of like, hey, they're not in the position like the Bears were. Bears were full on tank. When they started losing those few games after the New England game. I don't think the Panthers can full on tank. You don't have a first round pick. I don't think they have a second this year. I may be wrong on that. I'd have to double check, but you have no draft equity this year. So tanking doesn't help you. That trade to me set them back. I didn't think it was a good trade. I don't think you should have traded up from what were they, 9 or 10, whatever it was.
Panthers, they were 9.
You should not have traded up for that. You should have just stood where you were. You're going to suck this year and then hope you get the first pick this year to get Caleb Williams. That's what I would have did, but whatever. Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm obviously
not easy because You don't know who's going to be sitting in the 1 and 2 spots this
100%.
year. You don't know if they're going to be willing to trade because everybody's like talking about, oh, well, the Bears are going to just package their trades picks and move up to 3 to get Marvin Harrison Jr. Well, you don't know who's sitting at 3, and they might want Marvin Harrison Jr. more than they want your damn picks.
Exactly.
So we'll just have to wait and see. And I think that's where Frank Reich, who's coming in as a first-year head coach and a quarterback guy, and he's looking at this and maybe you start to believe a little more because you're projecting things of hope and things of that nature. But Bryce Young's certainly talented. It's his size that's the concern. And if he can hold up when he takes a tough sack, like it sounds like he had a few times yesterday. So, at the end of the day, I can understand it from their point of view, but I'm certainly happy they did it because it set up the Bears here for the future. They can win now. They can play to win now. And they have 2 first-round picks next year. And everybody gets mad at me. I know Elise was mad at me all of last year about talking about trading back. Well, get used to it because I want them to trade back again this year, and I want them to trade back every year they possibly can, so they can have 2 first-round picks every year for the rest of Elise's life.
Greg's over here playing Madden while everyone else is living in life.
Yeah,
but no, I mean, you look at the last few years, right? Look at what the Dolphins did when they traded. Look at what the Eagles have done when they've traded. And again, I'm not saying if the Bears do that are on that trajectory, they get players that pan out, but it's definitely worth a shot. You have a chance to win and also gain equity in the draft. And you, for the second year in a row, it's guaranteed you will have the most money in free agency. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be
a fun season. We're going to be covering it all. We're going to try to do 1 show a week. It's not always going to be on the same day because of how scheduling goes for both of us, and just try to make them work. Do our best to do post-game shows the day of, but again, very busy with different things, so can't promise anything. You're just going to have to stay tuned and watch for announcements on Twitter or set your notifications for this channel on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to us here. A lot of new listeners and viewers. This is going to be one of our, with Jason McKie dropping the knowledge like he had from his perspective from behind the line of scrimmage. That's about as good as it gets for what we're going to do this year, but we're going to keep trying to get better and better and have some fun with this. Got a few more preseason games to go, and then it's Bears, Packers, week 1, baby. I cannot wait. So, like I said, going to be season-long coverage. Junior and I are going to keep bringing the passion and, the chat. Keep hitting that like button. Really helps kind of build up the algorithm here with what we're trying to do. Follow, subscribe, all that bullshit. Honestly, it does help, and I don't want to be like a billboard here that's constantly, saying stuff. But at the same time, this is the stuff that's going to help us grow and keep us doing what we're doing here. And now that I'm full-time meatball idiot, you guys got to help me out. So hit that like button, follow us, subscribe, all that crap. And we'll keep this party going and keep bringing on good guests. I already got some guests lined up here going in the future. So I got to get running here. I got an interview coming up here in about 10 minutes. I'm looking forward to announcing who and where, but you'll just have to stay tuned for that. So with that being said, for Junior, I'm Greg Braggs Jr., and this is Braggs in the Stands, and always bear down.